Welcome to GLOBEWATCH with me, Charles EBUNE, aired from the residence of the Swiss ambassador here in Yaoundé, Cameroon. At least 1 billion people could be infected globally of the novel coronavirus, according to one of the world's leading humanitarian agencies, the International Rescue Committee. That is just a portion of a gloomy global forecast with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank indicating the economic consequences of the novel coronavirus will be dire across the spectrum. Already, some countries are in recession. The U.S. government, in particular, has injected roughly $3 trillion to balance the economy because of the COVID-19 effects. This is a disease which has entered into very extreme countries, even those which were considered to be safe from the troubles of the world, including Switzerland, as plus 210 nations, communities, municipalities, and states are now affected, with the world's global population of roughly 7 billion already affected. And governments are adopting measures according to their realities to stabilize the situation. What is the case in Switzerland, one of the few countries in the world which was not directly affected by the World War I, the World War II, and other maladies of the world? Pietro LAZZERI, welcome to GLOBEWATCH.
Thank you very much.
You are very much aware, like a portion of my audience, that as we speak, plus 3 million people globally are already infected by the novel coronavirus, with plus 222,000 deaths globally, according to one of the medical and university authorities so competent in the field, the Johns Hopkins University in the United States of America. Out of that global data, how many of them are from Switzerland?
Well, Switzerland has been hit by the virus in the first weeks of March, and where currently we have about 30,000 positive. So we tested 30,000, and out of these 30,000 we had 1,400 deaths spread in the different parts of Switzerland, mostly in the south and in central west.
Central west. Which are the key areas affected in Switzerland? Most people, when they hear of Switzerland, you're going to think of Geneva, they think of the Jura canton.
Yes, if you look at the map, at the beginning, so in March, the border areas were mainly affected. The southern part, the border to Italy, but also the western part, the border to France. But basically every one cantons then was affected. But if you look at the development of the virus, I think the southern part was the most affected part, and then with Canton Vaud and Canton Geneva.
Well, a century ago, the codenamed Spanish flu killed roughly 15 million people. That is more than the number of people who died in World War I, and Switzerland was one of the hard-hit countries with roughly 25,000 people dying during the Spanish flu. Does that tell you any story?
Actually, it's not the first time. The Spanish flu was one of the pandemic which affected Switzerland. In the 14th century, in the 17th century, other pandemic affected Switzerland. I think some grandfather, they still have the memory, the previous generation of the Spanish flu. At the time, of course, the medical infrastructure and the medical technology was advanced as today, but it was a big shock for Switzerland, the neighboring country, at the economic and the human level.
When you make such a flashback, the 14th century, the 15th, 16th, 17th, are you referring possibly to the Black Death pandemic which killed plus 200 million people? Are you referring to the Greek pestilence which affected most of Europe? Which are the ones are you referring in particular?
Yeah, the infamous pest. So during the 14th century, Europe was hit by this pandemic, and also in the 17th century, during the 30 Years' War, there you have a double crisis, war and pandemic. It was devastating for Europe.
Well, as you made such a fallout recall, you are best known of a country which is always under neutrality. The First World War, the Second World War passed by without Switzerland being directly affected. Roughly 150 million people died in both wars combined. The 1929 economic depression, which rocked most of the world, of the connected world at the time, happened with Switzerland almost like untouched, just like 2008. And I can fast forward and name many other troubles that have plagued the world. You have always been an island of a sealed country. Why are you so vulnerable to the coronavirus when I hear the statistics you give? Somebody may say, small virus.
I think we are quite resilient, but we are a very globalized country. So if you look at the European map, and you look Switzerland, and you look around us, Italy, the northern part of Italy, it's at the border to Switzerland. And the second very affected country is France. So it's impossible to close border to the pandemic. This is the reason why Switzerland has been also heavily hit. And this is also one reason because it's very important to have a global and multilateral approach to the pandemic. And I was talking about our neighbors. We have been showing a lot of solidarity to the French and to the Italians.
We'll come to a global response in a moment, but
yeah.
I just want us to pick on something. When you look at the figures of those who died during the Spanish flu as Swiss nationals, roughly 25,000. Today you are a population of roughly 8 million people. You are talking of 14,000 already. Do you think that when you look at the modeling, the material coming from the science world, you may overpass the 1918 threshold?
I think, at the moment, the curve in Switzerland is flattering. So I think the measure taken by the government...
In other words, the danger is increasingly dying.
I wouldn't say it's dying, but since the 27th of...
The peak is over?
Yeah, the peak is over in Switzerland. The measures taken by the government had three main objectives: to save lives, to avoid the overcrowding of hospitals, and flattering the curve. So I think we managed to do that. And since the 27th of April, the federal government started to decrease some measures. We're gonna continue to implement preventing and protection measures, but also to decrease, for example, restaurants are gonna reopen, schools are gonna start again, but of course, always taking into account that we cannot totally abandon the prevention and the mitigation measures.
One of the politically based solutions to a purely medical problem like the coronavirus undertaken by many governments around the world has been the lockdown policy. Which of this disease which emanated from China, and lockdown can be traced back plus 110 years ago, because in 1910, when there was a similar virus in China, the lockdown policy started in the area. How does it operate in a cantonal system like Switzerland?
Very good question. So we are in a federal system. The central government is coordinating the response, but then we have other actors, among them the cantons, and then the local actors, the municipalities. And you have to find a balance always in Switzerland. What can people accept? What can be really implemented? And for example, for the lockdown, in some cantons, we went a bit more forward. For example, in Canton Ticino, where I'm from, the people that had more than 65 years old, they had more limitation than others. So it was, of course, not always easy to decide about the measures because you need to find a balance between the need and what you can really implement on the ground.
Well, let me just speak your personal life on the measures. I know that most people, individuals, are in complete confinement, living in solitary life. A diplomat like you in a foreign land, head of a diplomatic mission, how do you feel living a confined life when you are already confined?
Well,
I should say double confinement, because diplomats are almost, okay, upper embassy is the office.
Yeah, you know, for a diplomat, as for a journalist, personal contacts are very important. It's our food. And here, on top of that, I think the fact that because of the virus, for example, the regular flights are suspended, you feel quite far away from your hometown. On the other hand, technology is helping us, so we try to replace meetings and physical contact through the technology, through phones call, video conference. But I look very much forward to go back to regular meeting, but it's not possible at the moment.
Is there something you are missing because of confinement and the absence of traveling, meeting people? Is there something you are missing? Are you frustrated?
Not frustrated, but you know, in the area where I'm working, in Cameroon, it's fantastic to go to the field. In Central African Republic, in Equatorial Guinea, then I miss to go and meet the people. On the other hand, we are able to support project and initiative even in home office function.
Well, the head office of the World Health Organization is based in Switzerland. You are a country and it is host to some of the best leading medical institutions in the world in terms of university, teaching hospitals and whatsoever. Any idea or activity on a vaccine being developed?
Well, I think this is a top priority in Switzerland for research centers, for university, for companies. Many of them are really engaged. I think it is key not only that in Switzerland these institutions are mobilized, but to get international cooperation. Because even once that the vaccine is going to be discovered or found, then you need to start production and distribution. So without international cooperation, it's going to be very hard.
I can remember that back in 2005, President George W. Bush had rallied the world in a speech that, look, we will be heading for another scenario like 1918, which ended up being a 2-year pandemic. On the 2nd of December 2014, President Obama in Maryland said 5 years from now we should be ready for a pandemic. The World Health Organization, like I said, is headquartered in Switzerland. Your country has had some of the best Nobel laureates in physics, chemistry, and biology. What's Switzerland taken by surprise after all this global outcry?
I think it's not only Switzerland, but many countries, or most countries in the world, they didn't expect the spreading speed of this virus. And once more, I think after this crisis is going to be over, we really need to have a deep, in-depth lesson learned exercise. And this is the first time, if you think, that the crisis is global, because in Europe, in North America, in Asia, in Africa, so all over the world, we are suffering because of a common pandemic. So the threat and the pandemic is global, the response needs to be global.
Malaria kills millions of people each year. HIV and AIDS, 36 million people for the past 36 years. Why do you think that our generation has panicked so much because of the coronavirus, whose elements of danger are not compared to HIV and AIDS? I know there are minors watching this program, but it's practically very difficult to function as a human race without sex, one of the modes of transmissions of HIV and AIDS.
Well, coronavirus is affecting globally, is affecting developing countries, but also Europe, the US. So the people, they are feeling in the north, in the developed countries, in their own flesh, the pressure of the disease. Sometimes in developed countries, well, the public tend to forget malaria, for example.
In Africa.
Yeah, because it's far away. Yeah. Corona is not far away. You know, I'm from a region, the southern part of Switzerland, which 90, 80 years ago was affected by malaria at the time. But the memory that do not last, right?
The United States jobless numbers because of the coronavirus are nearly 30 million people today as we speak. Half of the global workforce is already in a difficult position according to the International Labour Organization. How much of an economic disaster is Corona to the Swiss economy?
We're going to have a negative GDP about 4.5, maximum 5. And some sectors has been quite hit, services, airlines, tourism. On the other hand, we have to say that our government has been reacting quite fast. For example, we have a quite performant program focusing on small, medium companies. So we have a concrete support from the government, and over the past years, the Swiss financing system has been quite with a lot of discipline. So we have resources that are ready to be injected into the system. But on the other hand, you know, our trade is 65-66% taking place with our neighbors. So, and our neighbors,
essentially members of the European Union.
Yes, so, and they are in deep trouble. So we're going to suffer as well, but we are resilient. And
I'm happy that you mentioned one area of a major fallout, the tourism industry. This is a country where it's a diplomatic economy. You host most of the leading associations in the world, FIFA, the International Olympic Committee, the World Health Organization, the second United Nations largest office based in Geneva. But let me just narrow the issue. You should be a happy country today because most what they call presidential tourism was taking place in Switzerland, and the argument was always, okay, you are hosting all these dictators around the world. At least now you can sleep that the dictators are not coming, right?
Well, we have been a welcoming countries, and we will continue to be. We are supporting the multilateral system. Switzerland, it's a beautiful country, and presidents are welcome.
Are you missing them? Some of those who cannot travel now?
Well, it's not the fact of missing or not missing. We are missing the diplomatic life and our friends coming, visiting us. And you know, as we say, we have to wait for better times. We're going to reopen, and our lakes, our mountains, our beautiful Geneva, our beautiful Lugano and Zurich will welcome Cameroonians as well.
Well, you have talked so much about multilateralism, and international solidarity is a very rare word now in the global system. It seems to me that the expression of every nation for itself, God for we all, as stated in the 18th century by then British Prime Minister George Canning, or early 19th century, has its full meaning today. Either marks are produced just for individual countries before they reach another country has bought it and deprived another. Some are withdrawing from multilateral organizations. Some people don't want to help others who are in difficulty. What is Switzerland doing to say that, look, this is the best time where international solidarity should have the fullest meaning?
Well, Switzerland, it's very concrete. First of all, we are very proud of hosting WHO, which is a key organization to respond to this pandemic. Second, a very concrete step. So the Federal Council is supporting the international response with 100 million Swiss francs already in place, so about 100 million US.
Switzerland is one of the countries which hosts so many different foreign nationals. Let me take the aspect of football, cinema, and others. When will professional football in particular come to normalcy? As I was entering to conduct the interview, the French just announced that Ligue 1 is suspended and Paris Saint-Germain declared the official champion. All these elements that affect ordinary social life. Is there any timetable in Switzerland? Are you going to say that, oh, look, this too is closed for this year?
Well, very concrete example. I'm from the city of cinema in Switzerland, Locarno, and the International Film Festival has been cancelled. It was supposed to take place in August, right? Many of these events are not going to take place. It's very important to planify. We were in a phase where hard measures have been taken. Now it's the moment for the countries where the curve is flattering. It's very important to look at the future and to support the sectors that are in dire straits. The tourism, the international events, the welcoming sectors are in dire straits. They need to be supported.
And how much will you be injecting that? Are there already projections?
We have
as a rescue package. The
know,
Americans have given roughly $3 billion.
Yeah,
as I was just coming to conduct this interview, I was hearing the Prime Minister of Cameroon announcing a package of roughly 25 billion CFA francs to support the enterprise sector.
Yeah, in Switzerland we are very pragmatic, very well organized, and for every sector we have already prepared different packages. Some of them, for example, those small and medium size companies, they are already getting the money. So, and as I said before, we are in a good position because over the past years we have a very good discipline in terms of financial management. And I think these measures are not only important right now, but they need to be spread over the next month. This is key.
Everybody knows Switzerland because of a solid financial system. When you look at the breakdown of the global economy, India, the world's largest democracy, under a complete lockdown, do you think that the key tissue of the Swiss economy, the banking sector, now has a virus in it called corona? Has it destroyed your banking system?
No, the Swiss banks are very active and they are going to be at the center of the initiative of supporting our economic system. The banks as well are showing solidarity to several sectors of the economy. And we already discussed in the past the topic of the Swiss banks. If we look at the Swiss economy is resilient because we have a large different sector contributing to it. And the banks are actually contributing to about 10% of the GDP. And other sectors are making the 90%. So,
if I understand you so well, the Swiss banking system remains neutral even in the era of corona.
The Swiss banking system is part of a national response, and I think they're going to do their part. It's what we expect from a professional and durable banking sector.
The Swiss ambassador to Cameroon